Hari. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Wow, it's Karni Thai Prabhu, my pranams. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. My name is Madhavananda Das, and these are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is part of the series we're doing of talks. We're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. This is the 96th session and the 49th session of the Brahma Gita. And today we have a really beautiful topic. We're continuing from the last three sessions, speaking from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, about the paradoxical nature of the Gopis' love for Krishna. And we're calling this the danger of attachment to Krishna. So before I go any further, I'll just say a few prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram shaivanavotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Vedi Ramayanesh Chaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karodi Vachalam Pangum Vangayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinacharanam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda, He Madhava, Pajunga Luchi Makaranda, Se Makaranda Panakori, Anande Bolo Hari Hari, Harinka Name Bandhavela, Parikori Be Chakadola. Se chaka dolanka padaye manamo rahu nirantare manamo nirantare rahu ha Krishna boli jiva jao ha Krishna boli jao jiva mote udara radha dava Motu Radha Dava Motu Radha Dava Dharma Projita Kaita Vota Padamoni Matsyanam Sutam Vedyam Vastava Mattavastra Shivadam Tapatrayam Numanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kute Kimba Parayishvara Sadhyo Hridyavarudhyate Chakativi Shushu Shuvistakshanam Nigamako Pataro Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamitra Dravasam Yutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Rasika Bhuvi Bhavika Anato Pasanam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Vuksujit Lokashya Janato Vidvans Chakre Satvata Samyutam Yashyam Vaishyamanayam Krishna Paramapurushe Bhaktirupadhyate Punsha Shoka Moha Bhayapaha Srimad Bhagavatam Puranamalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsame Kamamalam Gyanam Paramgiyate Tatra Gyana Vairagya Bhakti Sahitam Niskramyamaviskritam Tachchinvan Supatenda Chana Pado Bhakja Vimuchin Naraha Atoyam Brahma Sutranam Vadatarta Vinirnayaha Gayatri Vashurupo So Vedartha Paribrimitaha Sarva Vedatihasanam Saram Sadam Samudritam Sarva Vedanta Sadam Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadrasamrita Triptasyan and Yatra Svedvachi Kuchit Bhakti Rasa Swaru Shri Bhagavatam Tatveda Shastvate Veda Upanishade Jata Kichu Hoya Tadayata Radyasa Kodila Sanchaya Jai Sute Jai Vishaya Vachana Madhavate Sehiru Sloke Nibandana Jivera Nisaralagi Sutra Koilo Vyasa Mayavadi Vashishanile Oya Sarvanasha Jahovata Pada Vaishnavira Stane Ekanda Shaikoyo Chaitanya Charane Bhagavata Dinamane Sejavana Sama Tada Sasta Achijanme Janme Gabujama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. Let's see here what's going on. Computers are behaving funny. So we're continuing with our discussion about the meeting in Kurukshetra. This is, as we mentioned earlier, our 96th, I think it is, 96th session in the series. I want to look back a little bit. We have a very confusing subject matter in front of us. All over the world, people in all different religions, whether they're Christian, or Islamic, or Hindu, where people worship God. And they worship Him with great awe and reverence and devotion, and they want to follow the laws of God, and they give great respect to God. But we're hearing now in this 47th chapter about how the Gopis are angry with Krishna, and they're saying some things which may seem very difficult to understand. So just offer my pronouns to the good spiritual master also. Gora Draganya Gana Gotra Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyara Kolpa Vriksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami. So from this 47th chapter, the 10th canto, which is called the Brahmara Gita, as we've been commenting, many Vaishnavas say that this is the most important chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, more important than the first chapter, the first canto, more important than any chapters in other chapters in the 10th canto, including Krishna's appearance and including the Rasa Panchadhyaya. How is it that what is so special about this chapter? This is a chapter that made Krishna come again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This chapter, in this Brahmara Gita, we find the essential mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as expressed in the Antilila, especially chapters 19 and 20 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it also sets the foundation for the meeting in Kurukshetra. So we're spending a lot of time on this. And we heard how about Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan and how he was looking at everything and seeing how ecstatic Braj was, and how he spoke to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and tried to console them, and how he became very confused because usually Uddhava, who's a Brihaspati Sishya, who's a disciple of Brihaspati, he really knows Shastra better than anyone who's ever passed Bhakti Shastra. Usually he counsels people by speaking Shastra and philosophy, but when he tried to do that with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda by telling him, don't cry, actually Krishna's not really your son, he's Bhagavan, it really didn't work. And then Uddhava met the Gopis, and Uddhava became stunned seeing the Gopis, seeing their ecstatic ecstasy of love for Krishna. And he had to deliver to them the words of Krishna, that Krishna spoke to him. And Uddhava was in a quandary. He looked at the Gopis, he remembered Krishna's instruction, and what did he say? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that he said Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, which wasn't really necessary because Uddhava was speaking, just repeating what he heard from Krishna. But he said Shri Bhagavan Uvacha because Uddhava couldn't understand why in the world Krishna wanted him to give this message to these devotees. And then he went on to speak about meditation and yoga and like this. And the Gopis became a little unhappy, very unhappy, a little disturbed. And Krishna, before he left, before Uddhava had left Mathura, Krishna told him, Mat Sandeshaya Vimochaya, that to relieve them, Vimochaya Mat Sandeshaya, you should give my messages to them. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Sandeshaya, that word in Sanskrit, is a plural word. It's only one message. But Krishna is saying he may have to repeat it over and over again, because the Gopis will respond to it differently as you go on and speak this over and over again. So Uddhava spoke to them, and then beginning with text 38 to text 52 of this 47th chapter, 15 verses, we hear the response of the Gopis to Krishna's message. And we've been kind of stuck for the last few days, last few sessions, on our text number 47. So we're reading again from 47 and 48 as we have done in the last few sessions. The Gopis respond, Param Sokyam Hinairashyam Saranyapyaha Pingala Taj Gyanitanam Na Krishne Tatapya Sadurapyaya. They say that the Param Sokyam, the highest happiness, Hinairashyam, is to become indifferent, to give up everything, just like the prostitute Pingala, who gave up everything. So at this point, the Gopis, basically they're saying that we know that detachment is the greatest happiness, but we have this desire for Krishna, which we can't give up. And why? Because Krishna attracts our mind. And this is the same point that the Gopis make in the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto, which is a meeting in Kurukshetra, which is the subject of our discussion for these last 96 sessions. And the Gopis, they only speak one verse to Krishna. Ahushtate nalina nava padara vindam Yogeshwarai Vidi Vichinja Magada Bodai Samsara Kupa Patitotaranavalam Geham Jusam Apimanas Yudiyat Sadanaha. The Gopis, basically they're telling Krishna, it's a paradoxical kind of verse, because first of all, they're praying to Krishna as Bhagavan, Ahushtate Nalina Nava Padara Vindam, that you're Bhagavan from whose navel comes Lord Brahman. They're offering prayers in this way, which seems very contradictory to the general mood of the Gopis. But our acharyas have described it as speaking in Kurukshetra. We spoke many times about this principle. Kurukshetra means you say one thing but you mean another. So on one hand, the gopis are telling Krishna, please accept our humble obeisances, your Bhagavan, Yogeshwarai Hridivichincha Magada Bodhai. The greatest of the yogis meditate on you in their hearts. They're very philosophical. And who are we? We're just ordinary householders caught in this griha coop, this dark well of grihastha life. So how can we worship you properly? This is one meaning. But a second, deeper meaning is given by our acharyas that the gopis are saying in a sarcastic kind of way to Krishna, oh, now you've become God. Please accept our humble obeisances. You left Vrindavan, you've come to Dwarka, and here in Kurukshetra, now you're a big, big man. Everybody's coming and worshiping you. And you're sending to us that Uddhava fellow, indirectly in the Sahushate Nalina Nada Padartha Nindaverse, which is also spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri at Rath Yatra. And our point we're trying to convey through these series of talks, really, our goal is not Kurukshetra, our goal is Jagannath Puri. And the mood of Jagannath Puri is like that of Kurukshetra. So this verse, Ahushtate Nalina Nada Padartha, the only verse that the gopis spoke to Krishna in Kurukshetra. Now you may ask at this point, well, didn't they have anything more to say? And one beautiful commentary by Mahanamrita Brahmachari, a contemporary Vaishnava around the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he commented that nice explanation I like. He said, actually the gopis said so many things. But Sukadeva Goswami, who was a follower of the gopis, he couldn't tolerate repeating what they said because their words were so painful. So only gave us one verse, which has a double meaning. And the same verse is again spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in front of Jagannath at Rath Yatra. And this verse reflects on the Brahma Gita, the 47th chapter. And we should see the connection, the thread going through all these things. In the Brahma Gita, Uddhava comes and preaches to the gopis about yoga and meditation. So the gopis, when they meet Krishna at Kurukshetra, they say, Ahushate Nalina Nada Padada Yogeshwarai Hridivichincha Magada. We know, your Bhagavan, you sent that fellow Uddhava to us, and he tried to tell us all about yoga and meditation. But look, we can't do yoga. We can't do meditation. The gopis are saying this. Because to practice meditation, you have to be peaceful, and we're not peaceful though. Our minds are completely disturbed because we can't stop thinking about you. So this is what's happening here in this 47th verse of the 47th chapter. The gopis are saying, Param Sokyam Hinarashim, that the topmost thing is to be indifferent, just like Pingala, to renounce everything. But we can't do that. We can't give up our love for Krishna. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that now in front of Krishna's great devotee Uddhava, they're giving up all their reservations and they're just letting it all out. They're speaking directly. Text 48. Ka utsaheta sankyatum utama shloka samvedam anichato piyashyashrir angana chavatek vachit. And the gopis, they say, who can give up these talks about Krishna? Who can give up these talks with Krishna? And they give another example. Anichato, that personality who's known as Chanchala by nature. Chanchala means someone who's not steady. Anichita, Lakshmi Devi, she can't give up Krishna, although she's Chanchala. It's very difficult to keep Lakshmi Devi, to keep wealth in one place. But Lakshmi Devi, she can't leave Krishna, even though Anichita, Krishna doesn't show any interest in her. Still, Lakshmi Devi can't give him up. So I'm looking back a little bit still, and I'm sorry, it's a bit of an elaborate review, but because it's a very deep, subtle subject, and to be able, I'm trying to speak in such a way that each one of these sessions can kind of stand alone, and that we don't look back extensively, it's not going to happen. Nor will you be able to see the thread we're trying to draw through these. So we also read something from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is spoken by the Gopis and given to us by Srila Rupa Goswami, a very beautiful verse, which reflects the mood that's being spoken in this 47th verse of the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, where the Gopis are saying, we don't want to hear about Krishna, better that we become renounced. So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's beautiful verses here. Smeram Bangi Traya Parichatam Sachi Vistirna Dristim Vamsi Nyastadhara Kisalayam Ujalam Chandrakena Govindakyam Haritanamita Keshi Titopakante Naprikshistastava Yadi Saki Bandhu Sange Stirangaha. The Gopis, they say, oh Saki, Saki Bandhu, my dear friend, if Bandhu Sange Strihangaha, if you have attachment to your worldly friends, then don't do it. Smidam Bangitaya Parichitam Sati Vistirna Distim. Don't look at that face, that smiling Smidam Bangi, that smiling face of Lord Govinda as he's standing there. At Keshi Titopakante, on the bank of the Jamuna of Keshi Ghat. That Krishna, he casts sidelong glances in different ways, and when he puts his flute to his lips, the ladies go mad. Those lips are like newly blossomed twigs, very, very soft and beautiful. And his transcendental body, which is bent in three places, is very beautiful in the moonlight. And the Gopis then, they go on to say, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami gives us this verse, very important verses to try to understand the mood of the Gopis. So he goes on to say, the Gopis are saying, Shanke Nita Sapadi Dasamaskanda Pradyavalinam Vana Karnadvani Pati Katamano Puravyada Bhavadi Hamho Dibba Paramashubhadam Hantadharmata Kamam Yadgarhantam Sukha Mayamami Moksham Apikshikhanti. The Gopis, they say, they address the others as Dimba. Dimba means someone who's like a child, a foolish person. So my dear foolish child, come ho, Dimba, my foolish children. How is it you're listening? You're hearing these verses, the syllables of the verses of the 10th canto to enter into your ears. Varna, Karnadvani Patti, Patti, the path of Karnadvani, the path of the ears. How is it you're allowing this to enter into your ears? Because Hanta Dharmartha Kamam, it's going to destroy your attachment for Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. How will you continue to live? So we spoke about this, I think, in our last session. Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnava Toshini, he says that when someone uses some words of criticism to actually glorify someone, it's called Braja Stuti, means glorification in disguise. And it's a literary embellishment, which is called Apastuta Prasamsa Alankar. It's an indirect expression of glorification. The real intention of the verses is not to tell someone, is not to dissuade you from going to see Krishna. No. This is Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But the real purpose is to glorify Krishna's form and the far greater happiness that you get by seeing that form. So he's saying that the real point is that we should give supreme importance to reading and hearing the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So in this way, both these verses, the seeming criticisms are actually constituting the greatest praise. Now, Mukunda Das Goswami, in his commentary on these verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he mentions that the word Dimba, meaning a child or infant, indicates that the Bhagavatam is effective even for someone who has no preliminary faith. And he says, while the words Karnadvani Patikatam, meaning that the travelers on the pathway of your ears, indicate that that hearing can be affected even if it's not done with concentrated attention. And even if it's done inadvertently or superficially, you just accidentally hear it. It's so very, very powerful. So we spoke something further than how the Gopis, they can't stop thinking about Krishna. And in this 47th chapter, earlier we heard how the Gopis were telling Uddhava, Mrigayo iva kampindram vidyade lubdadharma. That mriga means like a hunter. Like a hunter. He was going and hunting this guppy. Guppy's a monkey. Who will shoot a monkey? If you kill a monkey, if you shoot a monkey, it's considered to be a very great sin in Dharma Shastra. Because a monkey is almost like a human being. But they say this Krishna, this master of yours, Uddhava, he's like a mriga. Mrigayo, he's like a hunter who's hunting these innocent monkeys, like Lord Ramachandra who shot Bali from behind a tree. And then on another occasion, Striyamakritavirupam Strijikta Kamavanam, some woman approached him, Kamayanam, with some lusty desires. That personality is Supanika. You can't blame her. He's so beautiful. She became attracted to him, and what did he do in response? He had her nose and ears cut off. What kind of behavior is that? And then if that's not bad enough, Balim api Balim, Atvavesta yadham shiva yadyas. And Bali Maharaj approached him, and he gave everything he had to him. But what did he do to Bali? He tied him up with ropes, treated Bali like he was a crow. So tada lama sita sakya dushya jastak katarta. Let's give up our friendship with this dark complexion boy, because black things are all bad. And black people are very, very bad. Let's give up our attachment to him, the Gopis are saying, even if we can't give up talking about him. And the Gopis, further in the same chapter previously, they said, Vyadana charita lila karana piyusa viprut. That nectar of hearing about Krishna's pastimes is karna piyusa. It's nectar for the ears. And viprut, even if you get one drop of that, if you hear just one drop of it, then sakradadana, vidadadvandadharma vinashtaha. Vinashtaha means it's spoiled. It'll spoil all your material dharma. You'll give up your homes and everything, and you'll become like us Gopis, just wandering around. Bhava eva vihanga. Vihanga means like a bird, has no home. Bhikshacharyam charanti is begging place to place. This is the nature of hearing about Krishna. So then we heard something a little bit from the 90th chapter of the 10th canto, which speaks about it's the last chapter of the 10th canto. And this chapter is described as called the Mahishi Geet, or the Song of the Queens. And it's very interesting that that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the beginning of his commentary on this chapter, he mentions Madhyena Samarpayet. That, we got to turn it down a little low. So turn that thing forward. He mentions Madhyena Samarpayet, meaning that we should finish with something very sweet. And then he gives this description about the queens in Dwarka, the exchanges with Krishna. This is the same Sukadeva Goswami who's speaking this, who spoke the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Leela. And now he's speaking this thing, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he's finishing with nectar. Are we comparing the queens of Dwarka to the Gopis of Vrindavan? Indeed, that's what's happening. In our last session, I think it was, I spoke a little something about this. I'm not going to go further into this, but for those amongst our listeners who are well-read and thoughtful persons, I'm going to give you a little signpost. Look in the Lita Madhav. to try to understand the connection between, according to Lalita Madhav and Rupa Goswami, a very extraordinary description he gives, which seems very contradictory and different from other literatures. Look at the connection he gives between the queens of Dwarka and the Gopis of Vrindavan. And that will again have some effect on our understanding of the meaning of Kurukshetra and in Mahaprabhu's mood in Jagannath Puri. I'm not going to elaborate on that right now. I'm hoping we're going to go there later on, but it's just too much to try to do in this session. But there's a little road sign for some of that views. So, why is this 90th chapter of the 10th canto's last chapter, the 10th canto, so special that Vishwanath says, Mada Yena Samarpaya, that we end with something very sweet when Sukadeva Goswami has already drank from the wonderful cup of nectar of the Gopis' love for Krishna. So this chapter speaks about how Krishna was sporting with the queens, and it's mentioning that how Krishna completely captivated their hearts, stole their hearts and their consciousness. And Utra Mukundaika Diyo, they began to speak, and they spoke as if, the phrase used is Gira Unmata Vajjadam. Unmata means unmadana. It means as if they were mad. Vichar Sunya, they had no consideration about the Jadam, what they were speaking. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that it was as if they had taken some datura, or some kind of hallucinogenic drug. Queens in Dwarka. And this is a manifestation of the sixth stage of prema, known as prema vaichitya. Prema vaichitya is defined Priyasya sanikarshe pi prema karsha sabhavataha yadislesha vyartas tat prema vaichitya uchate. That this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's definition in Julian Money, that when, as a byproduct of prema karsha sabhava, the sabhava, the nature, the byproduct of one's prema karsha, intense love, is that they feel the distress of separation, even in the presence, even in the presence of their beloved. Prema vaichitya uchate. This is prema vaichitya. 4 types of separation. Again, in Ujjvala Mani, Goswami describes this, defines Purvaragas tatamana, prema vaichitya nityapi, pravasas chitikatito, vipralabhyas chitiravidaha. This Purvarag, where the Gopis and Radha and Krishna are feeling separation even before they've met. They've just heard some stories about the sometimes the Gopis, they hear the sound of Krishna's flute, and they immediately become attracted to him, even though they've not met. They're feeling separation even before they meet. That's the first type of separation. Tata mana. The second is man, sulkiness. And there's 2 types of man, vaitiki and avaitiki. Vaitiki man means anger with a cause. This is a kind of separation that's evoked because the Gopis become angry with Krishna because he did something bad. He was supposed to meet with Radharani in the Kunj, and instead he goes to see Radharani's cousin sister, Chandravani. This is Hoitiki Man. Radharani is very angry. Well, there's Ahoitiki Man, where for no reason she becomes angry. Sometimes Krishna glorifies Radharani, and he says, my dear Chandramukhi, your face is as beautiful as the moon. Now, I think probably most ladies would be happy if you called your wife Chandramukhi or moonlight. But Radharani became angry. She said, what are you saying? My face is like the moon. The moon has so many marks on it. And these pock marks, and you're saying my face is like that? That's Ohaitakima, anger with no cause. And then there's Prema Vaichitya, which is when the lover and the beloved are together, but in an extraordinary way, they're feeling separation. And this is a very important subject matter for our discussion. This is, in effect, is what Krishna's message is to the Gopis of Vrindavan, that we're together. This separation is only external, but internally we're together. This is Prema Vaichitya. And we'll speak much more about this. This Prema Vaichitya is very important. Rupa Goswami elaborately discusses it in Lalita Madhav. Again, there's the signpost to this subject matter. And this Prema Vaicitya, by nature, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As my Guru Maharaj would say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is two opposites in one container. There's both union and separation. There's union because he's Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. He's a combined form of Radha and Krishna. But the mood of Gauranga is separation. That's the topmost limit of Prema Vaicitya. The fourth type of separation is Prabhas. Prabhas means when the beloved goes to some distant place and they can't see him. And there's two types of Prabhas, Dura Prabhas and Sudura Prabhas. Dura Prabhas, intense separations, when Krishna goes to Kamyavan or some distant forest and the Gopis can't see him for a few hours. And then there's Sudura Prabhas, when Krishna goes to Mathura or Dwarka and the Gopis don't know if they're ever going to see him again or not. So this Sudura Prabhas is the subject matter of our presentation about the meeting of Kurukshetra. When you speak about separation, you also have to speak about union, because separation indicates union, and union indicates separation. You can't separate the two from each other. Just as there's four types of separation, there's also four types of union. And I'm not going to go in that direction right now, except to mention that the final and topmost level of union, as described by Srila Rupa Goswami in Vijayamana, is called Samriddhiman Sambhog. Samriddhiman Sambhog means fully enriched union. And Samriddhiman Sambhog takes place after Sudura Prabhas. So Sudura Prabhas has to be there for Samriddhiman Sambhog to take place. If we don't understand these things, and I understand, please forgive me, these are very technical things. In our society, many times we hear very simple things about you're not your body and like that, and those are important things. But at the same time, this is the philosophy of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. This is the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we should apply ourselves to it. We should try to understand this, even though it's not so easy. So this Samriddhiman Sambhog, which takes this fully enriched union, which takes place after Sudura Prabhas, the most intense separation when Krishna goes from Mathura Dwarka, this is a meeting of Kurukshetra, and this is Jagannath Puri. So the queens in this 90th chapter, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that they're speaking unmada, in a kind of madness of ecstasy. And they're speaking to the swan, just like the Gopis in the 10th canto, in the Rasa Panchajaya, they're also speaking to different birds and creatures of Vrindavan looking for Krishna. The same thing is going on in the Mahishidri, in the 90th chapter. And the queens, they're saying, Hamsa swagatam ashyatam vilopayo bruhanga sore katam. Oh, my dear Hamsa, my dear swan, swagatam to you. Please, welcome to you. Please sit down here. You have some milk. Ashyatam vilopayo. Please sit down and have some milk. And please give us some news. Sore katam. Some news of the descendant of Sura, Krishna. We know, Dutam Tvam Navidama Kacha. We know that you're the messenger, the Duta of that Lord. Is he doing well? Yeah? That Lord, who's a very unreliable person, this is what the Mahishis are saying. He's a very unreliable person, unreliable friend. Smaraditam Kasmat Bajamavayam. Does he still remember? Does he still remember what he spoke to us such a long time ago? Should we go now and worship him? Is that what he's waiting for? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the queens, they're imagining that the swan is a messenger, just in the same way that Radharani was imagining that the bumblebee was Krishna's messenger. I was thinking we we're going to finish this subject, these two verses 47 and 48 in today's session, but I'm not going to be able to. We're going to have at least one more session, but it's very important. But let's go through the commentary Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives of this verse from the 90th chapter. This is text 24, the Mahishi, from the Mahishi Gita, that the queens are speaking to Krishna. And in effect, the queens, they're addressing the swan as a messenger, and they're really saying, is Krishna, that unconquerable Krishna, is he doing well? And the swan then, in their mind's eye, replies, how can Krishna be happy without you? You're his beloved consorts. And the queens, they say, don't try to flatter us. Does Krishna even remember the affectionate words that he once told one of us, that he told Rukmini, where he told Rukmini, Natvadrishim kayaninam grihinam grihisha pashyami, that in all my palaces, I don't see any other wife as dear to me as you. Such sweet words Krishna spoke. It's so nice. Does he even remember that? And the swan replies, certainly he remembers that. That's why he sent me here. So you should all go to Krishna and worship him. And the queens reply that if Krishna does remember us, then why doesn't he just come here? This is very, very significant. This is like a mirror of the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, what the Gopis are saying to Uddhava. Now they were speaking to a bumblebee there. Now the queens are speaking to a swan. So the queens are saying, if he does remember us, why doesn't he come here? Why should we go and worship him if he refuses to come here to be with us? And the swan says, did he? Oh, well, it's okay. You're oceans of compassion. Krishna's suffering so much in your absence. How can Krishna be delivered from his distress, separation from you? And the queens, they shake their head. No. Don't try to tell us this. Said, listen, dear swan, you're the servant of a petty master, Chodra. You tell Krishna he should come here. If he's really tormented by lusty desires, he can only blame himself because he created Cupid. So we're respectable ladies. We're not going to just yield to his demand that we go to him. He should come here to us. And then the swan said, okay, thank you very much, and I'll go ahead and leave. And the queen said, wait. Just one more minute. We asked Krishna to come here to us, but tell him he shouldn't bring Lakshmi Devi with him, because she's always trying to cheat us by keeping himself all to her. And this is a similar thing that the Gopis are saying in the 47th chapter, 47th verse. They're speaking about how, 48th verse, how Lakshmi Devi, she's attached to Krishna, but Krishna's a Nichitam. He's not attached to her, even though she can't give him up. Same point being made in the 47th chapter and now in the 90th chapter. So the swan, he says, how can you blame Krishna? Don't you know Lakshmi Devi, she's Ekanishta. She's exclusively devoted to the Lord. So how could he give her up? She's so devoted to him. And the queen says, so? Is she the only woman who's Ekanishta? Who's completely dedicated to Krishna? What about us? So the word used in the verse is striyam. Striyam is singular, but striyam at the same time means a whole category of ladies. So another meaning of this verse, Shodra lapam akamadam. Shodra means honey. Shodra, Vishwanath is explaining it. This one word has different meanings. Shodra can mean that you're the servant of a petty master, but Shodra can also mean honey. And if you take that meaning, then the gopis, the queens are saying, why should we worship him, who's speaking in such a sweet way, but he doesn't fulfill our desires for love? And the goddess of fortune, she has no good brain. What can we say? She's going to worship him again and again, even if she gets no honor, no respect. But ladies like us, we have some pride, we have some dignity. So why would we go and worship him? This is spoken by the queens of Dwarka. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is the mood that we find of the gopis of Vrindavan. He says that the Dwarka Mahishis had attained this position. Their praying had matured in the ecstasy of madness, Bhavamada, just like the Gopis did when Krishna disappeared, Krishna left Vrindavan. And he says that here, this Prema Vaicitya, this is a stage of Anurag. And the Mahishis, the queens of Dwarka, have attained this. So I understand that we haven't actually really begun this session. We've just been doing some looking back a little bit. And I didn't even get to the point where we reviewed about the Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Mahaprabhu, he became very, very angry. We'll look further back at that again in the next session. And then I want to go on to discussing more about this Tavakatamritam verse from the Madhya chapter 14 of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which happens right after Ratha Yatra. And the significance of that verse in connection again with the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, the Dhammaragita, with the meeting in Kurukshetra, with the 90th chapter of the 10th canto, with this Mahishi Gita, and with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagannath Puri. So I hope everybody can tolerate my madness. These are just a few inspirations we've gotten from our revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhagavan Maharaj. And we're trying in his order, we instructed us we should think about these things. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said at Radhakunda, the devotees, he said that you're not qualified for these things. He said that you should know such things exist. So we should think about it. And in the language of my spiritual master, he said that these topics of Krishna are just like the deep ocean. And one of the synonyms of the ocean is Ratnagarbha. There's very valuable gems in the bottom of the ocean. So if you want to get those valuable gems, he said, we have to dive deep. If you only stay on the surface, then all that you collect is fish. So we want to dive very deep. So I want to stop here, and I want to request many of our listeners to share some reflection. Gorni Taipabu and Hungary shared something, and I'll get to that in a minute. Linda Sundari, thank you. You made a few comments here. Nice to see Stella here. Hare Krishna. And so if anybody has any reflections or comments or anything, this is the time, because the exercise that we're doing, it's not just an exercise in my vanity. It's not just that we want to give a class, but we want to share something, and that sharing should be paraspara. It should be back and forth. It's not, hearing is not a passive thing, but it's an active thing in Krishna consciousness and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So let me start off with Gorni Taipabu's comment here. He mentions that the Kali Yuga is the age of quarreling. And why is this the first quality mentioned about Kali Yuga? He says, because the relationships between the members of societies are so shallow that they can't develop faith in each other. And that's a very nice point. Let me just elaborate a little more, reflect on your comment. He says more, I'm going to go back to it. But because our relationships are very shallow, we're not thinking about what is their mood, why are they doing things in a certain way. Why is it that the ladies in Gujarat, they cover their head, but in South India, they don't cover their head? And the Gujaratis may become angry with the South Indian ladies, why you're not following this properly, or vice versa. But instead of seeing some external thing like that, we should go a little deeper. And that depth comes when we have faith. If we don't have faith in the other person, then how can we go about that? So let me keep reading from Gorni Taipabu's comment. Because the relationships between the members of societies are so shallow, they don't develop faith in each other. To counteract this, devotees and people in general should keep nice sangha, nice relationships, by speaking Krishna Katha together again and again. Thank you, Gorni Taipabu. This is the fact. If we speak this Krishna Katha again and again and again, then everything will come and we'll be able to understand each other. Just as Krishna told Uddhava That you speak this and you speak it again, you speak it again, you speak it again, and they'll understand in a deeper and deeper way. As we sometimes comment, Ujjwala Rasiga was asking me about this morning. I'm supposed to get some response about this to a question she wrote me, if she's listening. There's a symbiotic relationship between Krishna Nam and Krishna Katha. You can't separate the two. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, we were told, said that just as Krishna Nam is Krishna, Krishna Katha is Radha. And you can't separate Krishna from Radha. And even if we have Krishna there, even if we have Krishna Kirtan, but if we don't have Krishna Katha, there's no paraspara, there's no back and forth between the devotees, then how deep will our relationship go? Because we won't have so much full faith. To give an example, we've been commenting on recently quite a bit. In Jagannath Puri, in Orissa, there's so many people who chant the Hare Krishna mantra, but some of them, actually a number of them, are impersonalists, they're Mayavadis. They're doing Krishna Kirtan, but they're not hearing Krishna Katha with proper sadhus. So, Gauri type of went on. In the feeling of separation, the Gopis are speaking differently as in other situations. Very important topic, very difficult topic. Thank you. That's why we're going very slow over this and repeating these things again and again and again in hopes that devotees can somehow get it. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Radha, who's in the mood of separation from Krishna. Do you think that anyone in the world can understand it? We really need mercy for that. Yes. We really, really need mercy. But first of all, to get that mercy, we have to desire it. And our desire is expressed in our behavior. If we have no interest in hearing about these topics, then we're not expressing a desire. And if we don't express a desire, then how will we get that mercy? So let me go now on Facebook. And Linda Sundari, she's making some comments. I'm not sure which one she made first. Okay, set this one. She said, it's funny that the gopis' minds are too, quote, disturbed to do meditation or yoga, when that disturbance itself is meditation, as compared to material disturbance, which needs calm and become the meditation. It's very beautiful, isn't it? It's very paradoxical. And this is Brajastuti, as Jiva Goswami says. The gopis, they're criticizing Krishna. And they're saying, we can't meditate on you because our minds are so disturbed. But indirectly, it's Brajastuti. It's a kind of glorification of Krishna. That if someone thinks about you, their mind becomes completely stolen because you're the only worshipable object, you're the only thing worthy of meditating. Brenda Sundari went on to comment, even though it's higher topics, it's nourishing to be reminded of the highest society of persons in the realm of reality, absorbing and hearing about it when we're in the realm of illusory reality, which is like a desert. We need really intense medicine. If you take medicine and you water it down 1,000 times, you may get some effect, some good benefit, but it may take a long, long time. And in Kali Yuga, we're manda sumanda matayo, we have no good brain. We're always arguing with each other. We can't hear properly. We need to hear very powerful things. And therefore, Sukadeva Goswami assured Maharaj Parikshit, we were also speaking about this recently, a very interesting thing, that Maharaj Parikshit was a Raja Rishi, a saintly king. He's sitting on the bank of the Ganga, hearing from Maharaj Parikshit, hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. And present in that assembly were so many rishis. And some of them were people who were like really attached to the Dharma Shastras. They're really into Varnashram Dharma and that. And now Sukadeva Goswami is speaking the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Leela, about how Krishna is doing things with the wives of other men. And Maharaj Parikshit, he's very sensitive. And he's looking in the audience there, and he sees probably some of the rishis a little, how is this transcendental? Because they're attached to their Dharma Shastras. So not for himself, but for others, Maharaj Parikshit asked this question, how can this be transcendental? And Shukadeva Goswami spoke a very famous verse. Vikriritam vajavadu virhidam shavishno sharanvito nushanayat atavanayat yaha bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kamam He says we should hear about this, that if you have this hridrog, this heart disease of lust, then you should hear again and again and again about these higher topics. This is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Srila Prabhupada's purpose in coming to the West was not just to tell people you're not your body and that we should be vegetarian and there's such a thing as reincarnation. If you think like that, then you've only understood something very, very preliminary. Srila Prabhupada came to give something so much more. Read Srila Prabhupada's books, read teachings of Lord Chaitanya, read Krishna book, read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Deeply dive into these things and try to understand what it means to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava. How is a Gaudiya Vaishnava different than a Sri Vaishnava or a Madhva Vaishnava? What is the special quality? They're all worshiping Krishna. Even they have some appreciation for the Gopis. What is the special quality of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas? What is the special quality of the teachings and example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? That's our purpose in presenting the subjects. And I have to stop now because we have to get on a plane in a couple of hours. We're going to go back to Jagannath. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part in this session again. And if all goes well, we should be here again next week. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo